Family, a place that should be a warm haven, yet sometimes turns into a battlefield of opposing beliefs. I am the only child in my family who chose a child-free path, a decision I am completely content with. While my sisters have dedicated their lives to raising children with disabilities, I have pursued freedom, embracing a life without attachments. But on what was supposed to be a joyful housewarming party, everything changed. One sentence from me turned my entire family against me. Harsh accusations followed, social media connections were severed, and I was even excluded from the Christmas dinner. All of this just because I don't want kids? Or was it really because I dared to say the one thing no one wanted to hear? I was born into a family of 4 siblings. We are not a perfect family, but I never thought that my views on having children would make me feel so isolated. Among the 4 of us, one of my brothers has been disabled since childhood. My mother always said he was a blessing, a gift from God. I don't deny that he is an important part of our family, but growing up with him also made me aware of the harsh realities my family had to face. Constant doctor visits, sleepless nights due to his pain, my mother's endless sacrifices. All of these have been etched into my memory since I was young. My 2 older sisters A and B are 35 and 32 years old, respectively. They are both married and have children, but the hardship did not stop with my brother's generation. My sister's children also share the same fate. A has 4 kids, 3 of whom suffer from severe physical and mental disabilities. B has 3 children, 2 of whom have similar conditions, while the youngest has Down syndrome. Both of my sisters are full-time mothers, dedicating their entire lives to caring for their children. Their husbands have stable jobs, but with the overwhelming medical bills, therapy sessions, and expensive medications, they are constantly struggling financially. While government assistance programs exist for children with disabilities, it is never enough to provide them with a truly comfortable life. I look at them and I admire their resilience. But at the same time, I see the exhaustion, the overwhelming sacrifices that have drained them completely. I do not want that life. I do not want to trade my freedom only to find myself trapped in responsibilities I can never escape. My decision not to have children is not because I hate them, but because I fully understand what parenthood means in my family. I am not willing to gamble my life on a possibility I cannot control. I love my job, I love traveling, and I love the sense of freedom that comes with not being tied down by family obligations. But will my family ever understand that? Or will they only see the selfishness they believe I am displaying? They call me heartless, someone who only thinks about themselves. But if I were to choose a life in which I am not happy, just to satisfy them, then who is truly the selfish one? My family, despite all its challenges, has always been an important part of my life. But I can't deny that my sisters and I have chosen completely different paths. While my 2 older sisters have spent their youth caring for their disabled children, I took a different direction, one they either couldn't or didn't want to understand. I chose a life without children, free from family obligations, and most importantly, I am completely content with that decision. I don't deny that my sisters are incredible mothers. They have sacrificed everything for their children, their time, health, and financial stability. Their lives revolve around hospitals, therapy sessions, sudden fevers, and sleepless nights tending to their sick kids. They have no time for themselves, their hobbies, or even a full night's sleep. Both of them are stay-at-home moms, SAHMs, unable to work because no one else can care for their children as well as they can. Their husbands, though employed, struggle to keep up with the never-ending medical bills, therapy costs, and special needs expenses, leaving their lives in a constant state of financial strain. In contrast, my life is entirely different. I am single, child-free by choice. I have a master's degree, work from home in a field I love, and I have no debt. I recently bought my first house, a milestone I am incredibly proud of. I have the freedom to spend money on myself, my interests, travel, self-care, and enjoy life on my own terms. I don't worry about medical bills, sleepless nights due to a crying child, or giving up my passions to fulfill family obligations. I am free, and I love it. But to my family, a life like mine is somehow wrong. When I hosted a housewarming party, I invited all my friends and family. I even hired 2 babysitters so my sisters could attend and enjoy the party without worrying about their kids. Everything was going well until the end of the night when it was just the three of us. The conversation started off light. They congratulated me on my new home, asked about work and life. But then the topic shifted to marriage and children. They asked when I planned to get married, when I would have kids. I answered honestly, I don't want children. This wasn't the first time we'd had this conversation, but this time, they didn't let it go. They kept asking, why? Over and over, as if they couldn't fathom a woman choosing not to have children. Finally, I laid out my reasons clearly. I don't want kids because I love my freedom. I don't want to live their lives, sacrificing everything for a child. And most importantly, given our family's medical history, I know there's a high chance of having a child with disabilities. I am not willing to risk my entire life getting trapped in a cycle with no way out. But all they heard was, I don't want kids because I'm afraid of having a disabled child. They were furious. They called me selfish, heartless, that their children were blessings, and that I had no right to speak that way. They berated me, insulted me, and then blocked me on social media. In a single night, I went from being their sister to being a traitor in their eyes. But what hurts me the most isn't their cruel words. It's their refusal to see my life as a valid choice. They believe there is only one right path, the one they chose. But if I don't force them to live like me, why do they insist that I must live like them? I never imagined that my decision not to have children could stir up such a storm. But that night, in the very home I had just bought, I saw firsthand that in my family's eyes, the path I had chosen wasn't just different, it was unacceptable. After the housewarming party ended, only the three of us siblings remained, and the conversation suddenly turned tense. They couldn't understand why I, someone with a stable career, financial security, and a fulfilling life, didn't want children. I knew they weren't asking out of curiosity. It was because, in their minds, I was doing something fundamentally wrong. I answered honestly, saying that I simply didn't want children, that I loved my freedom, that I enjoyed life without the weight of responsibility. I didn't want to sacrifice myself, give up my hobbies, or trade my independence to live a life like theirs. I had seen how exhausted they were, how much they struggled with their responsibilities, and I knew that wasn't what I wanted for myself. But when I brought up an undeniable truth, that the risk of having a child with a disability in our family was high and that I didn't want to gamble my entire life on something I couldn't control, everything exploded. I was used to being pressured about having kids, but this time their reaction was different. They weren't just confused anymore, they were genuinely furious. They looked at me as if I had said something unforgivable. They kept repeating that their children were a blessing, that I was selfish, that I had no heart. The sharp remarks soon turned into outright insults, and then they blocked me on social media. I wasn't entirely surprised by that, but what truly hurt was the complete cutoff they imposed on me. All I had done was be honest about my thoughts, but to them, that was something beyond forgiveness. It didn't stop there. The next day, I got a call from my mother. I knew immediately it wasn't going to be a casual check-in. Her voice was serious, filled with disappointment. She reminded me about my older brother, the one who had been disabled since childhood, that he was God's gift, and that my fear of having a disabled child was an insult to our entire family. Then she told me something I never expected. I wasn't invited to Christmas this year. The reason? My 2 sisters refused to come if I was there. I sat there, phone still in my hand, not knowing how to react. I never thought that a single conversation could lead to me being shut out of my own family. I could understand their anger, but was it really worth cutting me off completely just because I had a different perspective? At that moment, I thought of my eldest brother. He was 39, married, and had 2 children, but the important thing was that both were adopted. He had made the decision long ago not to have biological children because he, too, feared the hereditary risks in our family. I called him. He listened to everything without interrupting. Then he sighed. The way you said it might have been a little harsh, he admitted. But they overreacted too. You're not wrong for choosing a different life, but you know how they are. They will never accept a choice that doesn't align with theirs. He advised me to apologize, not because I was wrong, but because if I wanted to maintain a relationship with the family, I needed to find a way to calm things down. I knew he was right, but could I really apologize for something I didn't regret? After the call with my eldest brother, I sat in silence for a long time. He didn't take sides, didn't criticize anyone. He simply stated the truth. I had been too blunt, and they had overreacted. But what weighed on my mind the most was his advice. I should apologize. Not because I was wrong, but because if I wanted to keep my connection with the family, I needed to maintain the peace. But apologize for what? I didn't regret what I had said. I don't want children, and I'm not willing to sacrifice my life for something I don't desire. I don't hate disabled children, nor do I see my nieces and nephews as burdens, but I can't ignore the fact that genetic inheritance is real. I don't want to endure the same struggles that my two sisters have faced, and most importantly, I don't believe I am obligated to live according to their expectations. But if I didn't apologize, it would mean being cut off from the family. Both my sisters had blocked me. My mother declared that I wasn't welcome for Christmas, and if things continued like this, our relationship might never be repaired. I spent the entire night thinking, did I really want to compromise just to be accepted again? Or should I stand firm in my beliefs, even if it meant sacrificing family bonds? In the end, I decided to send a message. I wouldn't apologize for not wanting children. I wouldn't apologize for choosing a different life. But I would apologize for how I had expressed it. Sister A, Sister B, I never meant to hurt you. I have always respected and admired what you've done for your children. I can't fully understand what you've been through, but I know you love your kids more than anything. If my words upset you, I sincerely apologize. But I hope you can also understand that not everyone chooses the same path. I hope that even if I don't have children, I can still be a part of our family. I hit send, and then I waited. No immediate response. No read receipts. No call from my mother. A few days later, I received a message from her. Your sisters aren't ready to talk yet, but if you want to come for Christmas, I'll talk to them. No instant forgiveness. No perfect movie-like resolution. But at least the door wasn't completely shut. I don't know if our relationship will ever return to what it once was. I don't know if they will ever truly understand me. But I do know this. I chose to protect my own life without entirely losing my family. And maybe that's the best I can do. After sending my apology message, I felt somewhat relieved, but the silence from my sisters weighed heavier than I had expected. My mother replied, saying they weren't ready to talk to me yet, but I could still attend Christmas if she could convince them. It wasn't exactly a reconciliation, more like a condition. I could show up, but I would likely still be shunned. I might have to endure cold stares and quiet avoidance throughout the family gathering, and I wondered, was it worth it? I had no intention of continuing to argue about my decision not to have children. I had made my stance clear, and I had already compromised in some ways for the sake of peace. But what troubled me was this. If I kept trying to mend things when they refused to accept me as I was, did this relationship still hold meaning? I thought long and hard about whether I should go to the Christmas party. A part of me wanted to. After all, they were my family, and I still loved them. But another part of me was exhausted. I didn't want to step into a room filled with judgmental gazes. I didn't want to force myself to fit in just because I had chosen to live my life differently. I called my eldest brother. He sighed when I told him about Mom's message. I understand you, he said. I've been in that position too, choosing a different path and being seen as an outsider in my own family. But you have to ask yourself, do you want to maintain contact with them at any cost, or are you willing to let them accept you in their own time? His words lingered in my mind. I realized I didn't need to force a rushed reconciliation. If they truly valued me, time would ease things. And if they never accepted my choices, maybe I shouldn't keep trying so hard to gain their approval. In the end, I decided not to attend the Christmas gathering that year. I texted my mom, telling her that I appreciated the invitation, but felt that both my sisters and I needed more time. Mom didn't respond immediately, but a day before Christmas, she called. Her voice was softer, though still heavy. I hope things will be okay, she said. But you have to understand, to them, your path is unfamiliar. They don't know how to accept it right away. I nodded, even though she couldn't see me. I understand, Mom, but I hope that one day they'll accept me the way I've accepted them. That Christmas, I spent the day alone. But I didn't feel lonely. I had no regrets about my decision. I knew I couldn't control how others thought, but I could control how I responded. Maybe one day, my family would truly understand me. Or maybe they never would. But either way, I had chosen to stay true to myself. And that was what mattered most.